Welcome to another week of Dirty Linen Food Podcast. Something a little bit different today. I have just spent 5 days in Brisbane and I thought I would send you a little postcard. So here we go. I went up there for school holidays and uni holidays, took my kids, dragged them around pretty willingly to a bunch of restaurants and had a really great time. I actually love winter in Melbourne. I wouldn't say that I hate the cold, that I need a getaway, but it was very nice to be up in Brisbane, sunny Queensland, low 20s, really enjoyed those beautiful blue skies. And the thought that I could have worn sandals if I'd believed in the sunshine enough to actually pack them. Didn't do that, but did have a great time. I stayed at Crystal Brook Vincent, which is right under the Story Bridge, on the riverfront, which is such an attractive part of Brisbane in all kinds of different ways. So Crystal Brook Vincent is part of the Howard Smith Wharves precinct, which has got a bunch of different restaurants there. There's a path for running or cycling or walking over to the left. And then if you head to the right, I'm sure I could say north or south or east or west, but I'm not sure about that. But to the right, you can keep going in towards South Bank. And at Crystal Brook, you can borrow bikes. So I did that one day, cycled to Goma, the Gallery of Modern Art in Queensland, which I always find worth a look when I go to Brisbane. There's an excellent ex de Medici exhibition on there at the moment, which I really loved. But yeah, where we were staying at Howard Smith Wharves and this precinct, there's really good food there. So I enjoyed Greek restaurant Greca. I just had a couple of salads and a wild weed pie there. And yeah, it was really nice. All the restaurants there look over the river and are very delightful. There is a massive brewery complex called Fallon's where I reckon it goes for about 300 metres through all kinds of different zones. The zone that's closest to the centre of the precinct is sort of burgers and pizzas and salads. That's pretty decent. There's really lovely benches overlooking the river, so great if you're by yourself or if there's just a couple of you, and there are big tables for groups as well. Further along, there's a canteen kind of area which does Thai food. There's also a screen there. There's a beanbag area where you can relax and watch movies. I even saw a story time there on Sunday morning for kids. There's a boat that kids can play on. It's just really nice. And because even though it's the middle of winter, it's very outdoorsy. So people are just sitting in the sunshine on a terrace drinking a beer. Families are just relaxing on beanbags. It's just all very idyllic. There's also a really nice place just for sandwiches and wood-fired bits and pieces, and that is called, what is that called? Gigi's Homestyle Cooking. That was really nice. There's an Italian place called Ciao Puppy. And from just around there, you can get a lift up the cliff and you'll find yourself in Fortitude Valley, which is, a pretty cool way to get around. Catching a lift around the city is good. Just over Story Bridge, found a couple of great places in Kangaroo Point. One is a French patisserie called Christian Jacques, which has got queues for its croissants. Even though Brisbane has its own loon, that's not the only place that Brisbane queues for croissants. Christian Jacques is great. It's just a buy and take away kind of place, but there's a really cool coffee place on between there and the river called Moonshine. It's a Byron-based coffee roaster. They've just got a really lovely little outdoorsy hang there under some trees. It's called Moonshine, and so I grabbed some pastries and some coffee and took it down to the park that's just near there overlooking the river. Very, very delightful. I wanted a place for breakfast, just did a bit of Googling around and liked the sound of a place in Kedron, which was about probably a 20-minute drive from Howard Smith Wharves. It's called Farmhouse. It's in a suburb called Kedron. And it was very cool. It was literally an old farmhouse, which had been much loved, but they had to build a road through there or something, and that side of things got closed down, but it's turned into a very produce-focused cafe. Really lovely menu. They're famous for their breakfast gnocchi. Naturally had to have that. Classic sort of potato gnocchi with a arrabbiata sauce with bacon in it and a poached egg. That was really nice. All the food was very delicious. They do a good coffee. So you had a couple of more, I suppose, contemporary dining experiences. Went to Agnes, which I was very excited about. Ben Williamson's part of the same group, or what's not called that, is it? It's Any Days group. Is that right? I think so. Anyway, Agnes, everything's cooked over wood. It's such a beautiful restaurant space, dark and moody, really centred around the open fire. Everything's cooked over the hearth, and it was really, really good. A special shout out to Head Som Oliver, who gave us such wonderful wine recommendations, and was just really willing to answer questions, give extra insights, give us little tastes to try with different dishes. It was really special, and the food all cooked over wood there was really brilliant. A couple of standouts there were the oysters with nduja, just very lightly baked. They were really delicious. I honestly love oysters natural best of all, so it's got to be pretty good to put anything else on them, and especially to warm them up. That it's got to be really special, and I reckon they nailed that there. It was really, really good. There was also a lamb sweetbreads that were on a skewer and then pulled off with a was it like a tuna, like a sort of tomato sauce, and just the creaminess of the sweetbreads and that slight saltiness of the garnish was really, really good. But everything there was very delicious. Great cocktails as well. A couple of people recommended Bar Francine. So that's a newer place in West End, which is a pretty cool precinct. And Bar Francine is so cute. It's a cottagey kind of place on Vulture Street. I guess it's a Queenslander, but it's a little one. So it's got this really rustic, homely, slightly rickety, uneven kind of feeling. Food comes on op-shoppy plates. Really creative and very veg-focused. So as I understand it, the owners have got another restaurant called El Planta, which is plant-based. This one, they do serve seafood, but at least on the current menu, there was no meat. It was very delicious. Some standout dishes for me were barbecued beetroot, which was presented with all the ceremony of a steak, with a beautiful béarnaise. It was just charcoal, very sticky, rich, sweet, so good, and so great to see vegetables heroed like that. Another standout dish was a celeriac carpaccio, which had, I think it was an eel sauce over the top, and like little potato crispies. So just a beautiful, very unusual, creative, veg-forward celebratory carpaccio. Celeriac is a great winter veg, and it was exciting to see it used in this way. There was also mackerel with truffles on it, and yes, definitely got the sense that truffle season's in full swing. Also, shout out to the flounder back at Agnes, which was served with truffles and prawns, and it was really, actually, now I'm getting confused. The prawns might have been with the mackerel with truffles at Bar Francine. Suffice to say, delicious fish with truffles are a bit of a thing in Brisbane right now. But truffles generally coming from WA up there at the moment. But yeah, I am easily overloaded with truffles, but these were two very good expressions of truffle with seafood in a way that worked. I guess both of them had quite rich sauces, and the fattiness of the sauce and the truffle played really nicely together. But yeah, Bar Francine was great. And as part of my ongoing campaign to get people to eat more desserts, the desserts at Bar Francine were bloody excellent. I especially loved the golden syrup dumplings with I want to say it was a goat cheese ice cream that was over the top, like a sort of beautiful iceberg, so flat on top and just sort of mounded underneath. The presentation was very simple but very striking. I absolutely loved it. There was also a mandarin polenta cake with a sort of creamy mandarin swirl on top. That was very, very good. And there was a brown sugar meringue with rhubarb, which was great. I guess they were all quite simple desserts, just a few elements, but the flavors were really well chosen. The execution was simple, but everything was completely on point and very, very good. Service there was really friendly. I mean, I have to say the service at Agnes really stood out for how polished it was and how professional. Bar Francine, I guess, is more of a wine bar and a very neighbourhood feel, super friendly, felt very welcome. It was really fun. How lucky to be able to enjoy those fantastic meals. Also, speaking of cocktails, which I think I did just a little while ago, I had a really good martini at Fiume, which is the rooftop bar at Crystal Brook Vincent, which there's also a pool there. And being Victorian, I did have to have a swim because it was above zero. No, it was like 21. So I definitely was the only person swimming. There were some people there from Perth who thought I was completely bonkers, but it had to be done and it was great. Crystal Brook Vincent was a really great place to base myself and my kids. Really good. Did have a little sneak down to the Gold Coast, to Palazzo Versace, because I was invited to go down there by Rudy Malinvani, who is a recent guest on the podcast. He's the chef at Restaurant Vanitas at Palazzo Versace. I've got to say, Palazzo Versace is not a place that I've ever really wanted to visit until chatting to Rudy Rodolfino, as he's more properly known, about his restaurant. And he was kind enough to invite me down to enjoy a tasting menu there. It's only going to be Palazzo Versace for about another month. They've lost the naming rights and it's going to revert to some kind of generic standalone hotel, and then who knows what's going to happen. But it's there's, marbles and mosaics and chandeliers and plushness and a lot of Versace, nods to Versace. I don't know. It's not exactly my kind of place, gotta say. But Restaurant Vanitas was really a great experience, and the food that Rudy is doing there with his team was really interesting. He's from Italy. He's obviously living in Queensland. He's doing a fine dining tasting menu with lots of tricks and flourishes, but a lot of heart as well. I really found a really strong emotional through line through this food, where he's very much honouring food from Italy. His nonna's rabbit braised in milk that he's redone in a very fine dining presentation in a beautiful sort of orb-like bowl with draped milk skin over it. It all looks very fancy, but the flavors are so honest and true. I really feel like his nonna would be so proud of what he's doing there. Really interesting little interlude. I wasn't planning to go to the Gold Coast, but couldn't say no to that kind invitation. That was my only freebie. Paid for everything else. I don't know why I'm telling you that, but thought it might be relevant. Brisbane, I reckon you are fantastic. There was a great energy in the city. I loved being there. It was a really nice break. I really did feel like I was on holiday, but of course I can't help but look for good food and good wine, coffee and pastry experiences wherever I go. If you want to hear more about Brisbane, please make sure that you hang out with us in our series about the building and opening of Short Grain by Martin Burt's, which is under construction in the centre of Brisbane. We are following along as Martin and his crew bring that restaurant into being. We've just done episode 4, so go back and listen to the long and short of opening a restaurant, episodes 1, 2, 3 and 4, and stick around as we release new episodes of that every couple of weeks as exciting things happen in Martin's world. Queensland, thank you so much for having me. Absolutely loved it. Looking forward to my next visit. Thank you for being so delicious and fun and sunny.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtyLinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This